We are back.
Yes, we our guests dive in deep and they cover a lot of stuff. Plus, we get a background on the Fear Street books, and it'll explain a lot of what's going on. It's very great content.
Yeah. So please enjoy.
As someone who is a person of color, I'm Latino. I kind of got this impression with the story they were telling.
We're all POCs on this.
Yeah,
episode.
we're all when you think about it. And I think that's interesting too. Like, I feel like we have our own perspective on the story too. But I feel like when you think about it, when you think of all the evil and shady side, it all started because some white man, thought he was entitled to something.
Yeah,
exactly. And then he lied. And then he lied on a woman.
Yeah, it was her fault. I'm gonna oppress this lesbian, and suddenly, like, they're thriving. His people are thriving, and kind of me wondered if it was that kind of idea of, like, you think about how, like, I've had conversations like this with coworkers and stuff that you do meet white people who will straight up be like, I hate racism. I love my Black friends and I love my Mexican friends.
I would have voted for Obama a third time.
Yeah, I would have voted him. And then you bring up, like, well, this, law or this institution is based on, has a racist foundation. So let's address the issues and, deconstruct it and tear it down and create something better. And they're like, oh no, Black Lives Matter, what? And they start freaking out.
All lives matter?
All lives matter.
How could just Black Lives Matter?
Yeah. And so, like, part of me wonders if it's that, like, outwardly they're not racist, but they acknowledge that they have special privileges.
Right.
And the thought of tearing down those, like, racist institutions scares them, because it's like, oh, I don't have privilege now. Now we're on legit equal footing. And I feel like that's kind of what it is with what's scary about some of those people is, like, they're not gonna, do something extremely racist, but at the same time, they're gonna uphold those institutions because they benefit from them. And I kind of see Nick as that kind of person where he's not this, like, mustache twirling evil guy, but he knows what he's doing is wrong. We kind of, even if we just say, like, okay, we saw a human side of him in 78. Maybe we're not looking at, Ziggy's point of view. Like, we saw him struggle with this destiny of his, where he even makes that comment, like, too many people have died because of me. And it's like, you look back at it, you go, oh, because of, he's the one who picked, the killer and stuff. But it's like the same thing where you're like, he knows what he's doing is wrong, and yet he doesn't stop doing it. He just keeps doing it. And that's kind of scarier than just, like, a standard villain.
Exactly.
Because he's not necessarily evil. He knows what he's doing is bad, and he does have some kind of remorse, but he still does it because he knows in the end he's going to benefit from it. And that's kind of scarier.
Yeah. So for me personally, I felt like each one was better than the last one, with the first one being the weakest. With the opening with Maya Hawke in the bookstore, and I'm like, oh man, this is good. Okay, she's the star of this movie. And then, like, as the killer was getting closer and closer to kill her, I was like, wait, are they about to pull a Scream? Is she Drew Barrymore? Like, what are we doing here? And I'm like,
a direct reference.
Yeah. And so, like from there, I was like, okay, well, let's go, movie. Like, I feel like we're gonna be in for a fun ride. And overall, I did like the first part. Like, I agree, Dina's toxic. Maybe it was me, but I felt uncomfortable with the relationship between Josh and Kate, the brother and the best friend. Because it felt like there was, like, a weird age gap. But I just looked it up, and she's 1 year older than him. Like, she's 21 and he's 20. But I didn't know that until just this moment. But that just felt weird.
I feel like it's kind of the way they presented him, because he definitely came off as much younger than Dina and her friends.
Yes.
So there was kind of that element. It's like when you were a kid and you're like, you see a movie and it's like, yeah, the young guy got the older girl. But then you get older, you're like, no, this is really creepy. Like, there's definitely, even if it's not a big age gap, but it's still a maturity gap, and it's weird.
Exactly. Like, has anybody seen Blank Check? Disney's Blank
Check? Yes.
Like the little 12-year-old boy making out with that that 30-something-year-old woman. I'm like, and you're a law enforcement officer, ma'am?
Like, even as an actor, I'm like, I want to collect a check, but I don't want to collect a check that bad. Like,
Right.
no.
And then like I also felt like the plan to kill Sam was really stupid. We're gonna take these specific pills to kill her, and then we're gonna bring her back to life with an EpiPen.
Yeah.
Like what? And then when
And I
they
definitely,
when they drown her, they stick her with 5 EpiPens and then do chest compressions. Like, is that why wouldn't we just do the chest compressions? Like it just we were doing unnecessary steps.
yeah, and I feel like part of it is that like part of me wants to go, it's that preteen horror logic where people do dumb stuff and it magically works.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, man, those chest compressions have done a lot in this series. Like I got stabbed 30 times and it's like boom, boom, boom.
Back
I'm
to life.
healed.
Like
what's
a
going
video
on?
game.
I think he was also referring to Nick resuscitating Ziggy.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people wondered about that, and then how did she get up when she had like 20 stab wounds?
Yes, that's what I thought. Like he stabbed her all that time, and also he just comes and give her CPR, and I'm like, that's not how that works.
Like I felt like that was the biggest problem of these 3 movies, where people were getting stabbed in the stomach and living.
Oh yeah.
Like the first movie ends with Dina getting stabbed in the stomach by Sam, and she's like, all right, well, I got time to go over to Ziggy's house now and sit down on the floor and listen to a story. And now I got time to run around the mall. I'm like, you were stabbed.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
Why aren't you dead?
it's like that horror movie logic, but to 120%. Because like sometimes people get like stabbed 30 times and then they're back for the sequel, but you're like, okay, it's been a year. These kids were being stabbed 30 times, and 10 minutes later, like, let's go get some Sonic. Let's go get some food. It's like, no, let's go bleed for a while in the hospital. Come on.
But I think the one with Nick and Ziggy kind of made sense when you find out that it's Nick behind everything. Maybe he asked the devil or something
Yeah,
to
that's fair.
spare her or something.
Like, I want the girl, so
Yeah.
I just made a sacrifice. A lot of kids died. Give me the girl. Come on, this is the least you can do.
I want
Yeah,
the
it's a
girl,
least
but
you
I'm
can
never
do.
gonna talk to her after today.
But I'm never, because I'm gonna betray her and not support her and be like, nope, it wasn't a witch. It was just some crazy guy.
Yeah.
And then in the second movie, we had like a Friday the 13th vibe, so I was feeling that. I don't like that they were like, oh, we're gonna have a twist. C. Berman, that's obviously Cindy, right? But
Yeah.
then you cast the little girl from Stranger Things in the movie, and I'm like, well, obviously that's Britta from Community in 1994. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah. It's like I feel like they wanted to make a twist, but they didn't really. And also like the whole, and once again, I feel like it's that cheesy teen logic where it was like, C. Berman, who can it be?
Right. Like Ziggy.
We're gonna figure it out.
Like somebody would actually name their child Ziggy. What?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like maybe in the
David
90s,
Bowie reference.
Like if it was 10 years later, I might buy it. Like, oh, they were, fans of the music, so they named their child after it, but not
in 1978.
Yeah, not in 78. Like, obviously it was a nickname. So once you realize it was a nickname, you're like, well, she's got red hair. She kind of looks like her. It has to be her. Oh, surprise, it is.
Yeah, I wasn't here for that twist. And then I like the third part. I do like the 1666 parts, but like I said, they wasted bringing back those actors. Also, I feel like it was a waste to cast a different actress to be Sarah Fear when in the third part you just have Dina play her. So they could have just had her like maybe some different makeup on, and she could have just been the character the whole movie, the whole series.
we could have, going off what I mentioned earlier about the idea of like the echoes throughout time. Like we could have easily bought that Sarah was, Dina was just an ancestor, a descendant of Sarah's, and it's just like the family line continued. Like I would have bought it.
Yeah.
And I feel like the only reason they didn't do it is because I feel like maybe they would have thought like it would have been giving away too much too soon, and then we would have been like, okay, Sarah is going to be a good guy because we know Dina is supposed to be our
sense.
hero, and then we know Sarah's gonna turn out to be good.
I mean,
But at the same time,
they could have hid her face like in the brief appearances that she had in the other two movies, though.
Yeah, like it could have been like fuzzy, so we see her features, but we don't know who it is, and then finally we get the reveal, and it's like, oh, it's the same. So then we would have, it would have been the same thing. Like we're rooting for them all along. But yeah, I feel like same thing because it was like the girl who played, I guess, real Sarah. We only saw glimpses of her in like flashes, and I would have maybe used the same actress.
Yeah, saved a little bit of money.
Save money. Save couple thousand, maybe $1 million, save some money. And it would have been an artistic choice too. Like they could have justified it in the end too.
But no, like I like part 3 the best. I like the 1666 parts. It reminded me a lot of The Witch. But when we got to the end and they said Fear Street 1994 part 2, I got up out my chair and I was like, let's go. Like,
like, it's time. We gotta finish this. Yes, let's go.
Like, I love the idea of when they were in the mall and they were like, okay, so if good summon these spirits, what if we put pain in him and they kill him? Or when they put the blood on the other maniac guys, I was like, and they're killing each other. I was like, this is what I came here for. Yes.
Like finally they got smart. They're like, this is what we need to do. Let's do it. Yeah. We should have done that the first time.
Yeah. They should have done it the first movie.
But like, so overall, I really like the series. Like, I liked each one more than the next one. I feel like in their attempts to give the brother Josh something to do, like, okay, he had a love interest and then they killed her. And then they were like, oh yeah, he's into chat rooms, but we don't really do anything with that. Really? Like that had no relevance. And it's like, oh yeah, this random girl, it's like, hey, here's my handle. It's 1994. Like we're not putting at Slayer Girl. 55.
We're not doing that. Like, and then we do briefly see her in the last movie, and I'm like, but that didn't go anywhere. Like, is she the one who stole the book? Is she like? Oh yeah, like
that's
Miss
another
Psycho?
Thing. I like. It's very clear that it's a white man that took the book, so I'm assuming that is the brother. But I wish that whoever would have taken the book had gloves on, so that you couldn't see like, is this a man? Is this a woman?
Yeah, because I feel like if they do more movies, it's not going to be a continuation. Like they've done their story already and they're going to move on.
Yeah.
But I like that too. Like I love that kind of open ending because, scary movies and books are notorious for that. Like, dun, dun, dun. You're not going to get a sequel, but ooh, evil's still out there. But I would have liked it too if they would have worn gloves, because then you really could have speculated forever who it was. Unless they were going for that, the white man continues his evil, or whatever that's what they were trying to do.
That was intentional. They're trying to, make sure we open up our third eye.
Yeah, they're like, ooh, now watch out. As somebody pointed out on Twitter, maybe it was the straight white people, the evil straight white people we met along the way.
Weren't we all the evil straight white people at the end of the day? All right, Matt. I got your I'm sticking it down here. Please get on your soapbox and let's go, man.
I don't really have to now. I mean, y'all pretty much covered pretty much everything I was gonna say. And y'all said it a lot better than how I was gonna say it.
No, I 100% agree. Like Melissa and Michael broke that shit down. So
right, that's why I was like, I was just listening. I'm like, I was gonna say that. That was a lot better how I was gonna say it. So that's why I kept my mouth shut.
Yeah, I was like, I'm really one quick to say something racist, but like I was like, God damn, Michael, I didn't even think of that shit.
I didn't want to go there, but I went there.
I guess the only questions like that's still on top of my head is, what was the purpose of all the alarm clocks?
That's what everyone's asking.
Yeah, because like I was wondering, like, I definitely like watching it. It gave me the idea, like, obviously she's messed up since 78, but why all the clocks? Like, is it like part of me wondered if we saw what happened with Dina when she went back in time, or she had the flashback and was in Sarah's body, if maybe did Ziggy have a moment like that and now time's messed up for her where she has to like, this is the real world, but it was never explained or like expanded on. So I was like, is it just to give us the idea like, obviously she's crazy because she has all these clocks and we're supposed to think that she's crazy. But then, you know, we find out her backstory and everything else. And you're like, okay, so I understand like she's upset about her sister and all the stuff she went through, but why the clocks? Like, why,
Right.
you know?
I understood like the locks and how she did everything, but I was like,
Mhm.
the clock part was just like, I was waiting for them to, you know, come back and explain what it was, but it just never came.
They never
So-
did, yeah.
I'm thinking maybe it's a situation of control. Like in 78, she was put in a situation where she had absolutely no control over it. She lost her sister. So many people died. And now she has these clocks to remind her, like, this has to happen at this time. This has to happen at this time. I will control the narrative
Yeah.
of my life from now on.
Mhm.
For
So that's
her to
one
keep
way you
her
could possibly
sanity.
look at it.
Yeah. That's probably, going off the idea of like the control and stuff. That's probably, I mean, I would think maybe that is what it is. Like she's, you know, this is the first time she's in control, but she has a routine and it has to stick to that routine so
Yeah.
that she maintains that control. And if it doesn't, she can't maintain it. I mean, we saw when the dog started barking and it kind of threw her off, and it's
Mhm.
like, oh, it's not time yet, you know, kind of thing. And maybe that's what it is. Yeah, she just needs that crazy control.
And she could be suffering from PSTD
Mhm.
Mhm.
post. Yeah, so that's probably how she tried to keep her routine and her daily to-do list, you know. Since she hardly went out anyway and hardly interacted with other people.
And then I guess the next thing is, okay, so in order for them to, he has to give them a name, and then that person kills people. So I was thinking if he was good and, you know, this is the way it has to be, he could have did like a controlled environment type of thing. He's a sheriff, so won't you just say the name, get that person and location, put a bad guy in there or something like that to control the environment to where the killer is not killing all these random people.
Mhm.
And was there a the killer has to kill X amount of people?
No, it's just until the killer is stopped.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that's
then that
that's
goes back to
why
where
that's why like he came and killed him in the mall, because he's like, okay, you've killed enough people. Now let me stop this.
right.
Mhm.
So yeah, so he could have done that more to where, all right, he has to kill at least one person to give the blood to the devil. So just, hey, let me do this person and then kill him instead of all the. So I guess I don't know if it's me being old, me being 2021, but it was like first killing. Okay, fine. It's 1966. The kids. I was like, you killed the kids.
12
And I was
kids.
like, why are you killing the kids? But I'm like, they probably done this in thousands of movies, but I don't know. For some reason, with that part, I was like, ah, you dirty son of a bitch. You did that to the kids.
Friday the 13th didn't touch the kids. Like only the counselors died.
Mhm.
That's what
See,
I
and I
heard.
guess like that. So I was like, for some reason, when I was watching that like made me angrier that it was kids versus, I guess, it's okay to kill regular people, just don't do kids.
Yeah, and when they do like in a slasher movie, when it is like a teenager or a young kid, it's always like a 20-year-old playing them.
Yeah.
And with this one, it was like, no, that kid is 14, and they just
Right.
like butchered him. Like, this is so wrong. And
Just
I
like
thought it
in
was
the second one, yeah, the camp one, they had the fat nerdy kid with the glasses,
Yeah,
and they
Aw.
killed him. I was like, what?
I just was sad. And
and it's funny. It's funny too, because I saw an interview with the director, and she was talking about how technically 78 was the last one they filmed. It was the
Yeah.
last movie they actually filmed. And she was talking about how by that point she was just so tired that she was just like, more blood, more gore. I just want more. And I'm like, yeah, you got more in that one. All those
Yeah.
poor
maybe that's
kids.
why.
So I was thinking maybe the spell is more powerful the more people are killed. So like whatever you're trying to get, like if you're like, oh yeah, I want wealth. Well, your wealth will you will get more wealth
Mhm.
the more people that are like slain.
Okay.
So
Could
maybe
be.
that's why it's not in a controlled environment. Because like to set that loose in a summer camp,
Yeah.
like
That's just wrong.
you're getting a lot of
Yeah.
bodies from that.
And I guess the only negative thing about the whole process is the whole starting from the end and beginning goes to the middle where you already know the ending. It's kind of like when we reviewed Black Widow, where you know, all of this stuff happens, but you already know the outcome. So that kind of like takes you out of it. To where same thing with this one, where you know the ending, you like, you know she's gonna be hung and everything else like that. So that was kind of, I don't know the right word for it, but besides that, I enjoyed it.
Anticlimactic.
Right. So you're just trying to lead up to that point versus I don't know what's going to happen at the end type of thing.
So would you have rather them gone in order but omitted some stuff?
Yes, because then I have to rethink about it, but the way they did it was okay. But I think I would have rather if they would have omitted some stuff and like brought it out to where you would never have known. I mean, part two, we didn't know what was going on from there. But leading up to the first one and the second one, or and I guess you didn't even know. So I guess from the camp one, 76, you knew the outcome, what the outcome was going to be.
You just didn't know the details.
Right. So I don't know, but like just watching the 1666 one episode, that was the one where it's kind of like it's the means to an end. I just got to see how they get from this place to this place. Where the other ones, I mean, the other episodes of movies, you're right, we didn't know what was going on, but I guess specifically that one, it was kind of like, all right, let me just get to this to get to the end.
Yeah, it could have been interesting had they, like, even if they did it the order they did, if they would have done something where they told us one thing happened to Sarah and it, you know, it wasn't like she got hung or something, but she, you know, did all this evil things, or, you know, she did this, and then we find out that's not what happened. Would have been interesting.
But they did kind of do that though.
Yeah, they did.
In the first two movies, they laid it out like, oh, she was evil.
She was the bad
cursed
one,
this town, right? And then in the flashback, you saw like, oh no, none of that was the thing.
And technically, it kind of was.
I mean, she was just mad. She was on some, "Are y'all gonna kill me? I'm gonna say this other stuff. Also save my girlfriend." But also, I feel like partially, it was probably partially like a commentary on horror itself. Like you have one solid movie, and then like they're like, we're not gonna go forward, we're gonna go back, and like a prequel, as in here's something that happened like on another time that these killers are out. And then eventually they were like, well, what if we go back to the beginning, like Exorcist beginning, and then what Leatherface begins and all that stuff. Like maybe that was like some low-key commentary on horror itself.
Yeah, and I feel too, like when you think about it, like you always hear about like the first movie's the best and they just get worse as they go along. And then this one, and then like the prequel comes out and you're like, oh, this is the dumbest one of all. And then, like you said, with this one, it's like we started in modern times, we kept going back, and they kept getting better and better. Right. And then the prequel was the best one. Like,
you got anything else, Matt?
I want to hear this book talk. I want to see how the books compared to the movie.
What got you into the book series?
I think I was a 90s kid, so we were into Sweet Valley, Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, that kind of thing. And of course, there was the R.L. Stine and Christopher Pike. And then, for some reason, I hoarded them. I wasn't scared of them. Like, it was kind of addictive to get a book and then to read it. You know, R.L. Stine wasn't very long into expositions. He really got the action going. Like, maybe some books could be a bit ridiculous when you look back now. But there are really good ones. I think the question in the Google Doc you gave us, like which ones was our favorite. I think for me personally, it was the Fear Street sagas. There was the cheerleaders, where a lot of evil possessions happened to a group of cheerleaders, and then there was a 99 Fear Street, the most haunted house in Fear Street. So I think those 3 trilogies, R.L. Stine really did well in them. Like even for the sagas, it was like in a way his take on 1666. I think that's where that movie was based on, because that movie had the goods and the fears, but actually in that series, the fears were evil as well. Actually, originally in the books, both families, the goods and the fears, were both evil. But what really started was that the fears were the ones who cheated the goods at first. So actually, any kind of evil that came from the goods was a form of revenge. that the fear started. So actually, that was one of my small gripes in the movies as a book lover. Like, why were they making the goods just the bad guys when actually in the books it was both of them, and actually even the fears were more evil in the books. So I think RL wrote the or maybe one of his ghostwriters. RL really did the sagas. He did it well, and there was a lot of witch burning there. Actually, it was burning. It wasn't hanging. And Michael's laughing. I might have read this.
Yeah.
But and actually one of the similar themes from the movie is about witches being accused wrongly. In the books, it was because the fears were a wealthy family. They did not want their offspring to marry a poor good girl. So what the fear patriarchs did, they accused the girl of being a witch when actually she wasn't. So they burnt her and her mother, so they wouldn't marry their son. And then, as it turns out, it was actually the father of the girl who was the witch, the real witch. So that guy, that good guy, he was the one who cast the spell on the fears. And then it was one generation after the other who doing evil and shut upon each other. So that's actually how the books went. But I think RL was able to write it well, and it wasn't too much for someone who might have been in high school at that time. Like for me, I actually liked it. I wasn't scared to go to sleep after reading those books. So for me, that was the charm. And I actually find my Fear Street books more memorable than Goosebumps. I don't know. I think the Goosebumps were a bit too tame, but those books have stuck with me even until now.
Yeah, I mean they were also for a younger crowd though.
Yeah. I think RL said that in the Goosebumps hardly anyone died. But in his Fear Street series, of course, he had a fun time killing people.
People
So,
died in Fear Street.
a lot, yeah. So I think it was I don't know, that's what captivated people. But I think when it came to the movies, what the director did that I think was a great um revision or maybe remake for her was that she just didn't want to do a jump scares kind of horror movie. For her, she wanted to put out the message. I think that's why she had that, the white man is evil and, the minorities and shady side. I think that's why she put that message out there about inclusivity and all that, because she didn't just want it to be, just a jump scares or horror kind of movie with no message. I think it was a good um revision for the big screen as compared to the books, because the books were mostly it was mostly about horror, but not and since they were done in the 90s, I don't think they were any of those themes back in the books during that time. But I won't begrudge R.L. Stein for that,
Right.
because
It was a different time.
It was a
yeah, it
different
was a
time.
different
Yeah.
time. And it wasn't, I don't think it was his intention to exclude people.
Right.
Yeah, he wasn't big on like social agendas or anything. He was just telling a
Yeah.
story, so he didn't really focus on
But-
themes like that.
Yeah,
True.
it's not like he was Stephen King that, even back in the day was putting the N word in every single book that he could. But that's a conversation for a different
That's
day.
another conversation.
But so I just looked it up, and there's 164 books in the Fear Street saga. How many have you read, Melissa?
I think I had like 40 to 50.
So you didn't even
only
put
half.
a dent in it, huh?
Well, but I had the most popular ones. I had the trilogies. I think the ones that I mentioned that were, I think they were the most people really wanted them that time, and they were the hardest to get.
Okay.
So
Wait, I still have a question. So if it was, you said how many books?
164.
So
In total.
164 Fair Street books. So how did they make this movie? Like, did they just pick three, or is this like a compilation of all the books, or how did they get to the movie?
there was
It's,
nothing from books.
Yeah, it's pretty much
Ending.
it's like an original story, just kind of using some of the elements from the books and the town itself and like a loose history, but they're pretty much
Yeah.
original stories. Although I will go when I talk, they're in a way it's kind of a loose reinterpretation of one of the famous trilogies, like a loose remake of it, which I can go into in a bit.
Okay.
And one of my gripes with the movie was that they didn't say why it was Fear Street. Like when they showed the street during the 1994 Part 2 part where Martin lived, it was
Mhm.
shown as Fear Street. It's an FIER because in the books it was important why that fear became fear.
Mm.
So I don't know how they're gonna do it in the movies if they have like a
Wait,
Mm.
why? Explain to me why.
okay, in the books. So I told you about those evil fears, burning that poor good girl. That's why the goods sought revenge against the fears. So anyway, it became into Simon Fear's generation. Um, he found out that his name FIER fear actually is means fire when you spell it another way. It's fire. So there was someone who told him that's how his family would perish through fire. So he tried to escape that and the curse that the goods put on his family by changing it into fear. So actually the curse went away for a while. But the thing is he also married an evil woman from another family. Her name was Angelica. So in a way, when they moved it to Shady Side, they were like the evil power couple, Angelica and Simon Fear, and then they built their wealth, and then they had like 5 children. Anyway, a lot of evil stuff happened, like their daughters killed each other and all that. But but anyway, it all ended.
Whoa.
I know there's a lot of stuff like that in RL's books.
A
So
lot of
anyway,
drama.
yeah, a lot of drama, a lot of siblings killing each other or something. So anyway, the what happened at the end of Simon's story was that his mansion burnt down. So the fire still got him, even if it changed his name. And then when his mansion burnt down, the townspeople demolished it and they made a road out of it. That's why it was called Fear Street.
Hmm.
To make a very long story short. But I don't know. A lot of fans found that part of the story really compelling, like his history. Like we thought it was the one that was gonna be put in movies or maybe a part of it or something. But yeah, they they came up with their own story for the movies. But anyway, it was the movies were great. So
I
I'm
also
just
have one more
wondering.
question about the books. Is it like, can I pick up any book and read it and understand everything, or is it somewhat connected?
Yeah, but well, like Melissa pointed out, there's a few books that are trilogies that have to be read in a certain order. But
Mhm.
for the most part, Fear Street is more of like a brand. Like they're all stories that take place within the same town
Okay.
or on Fear Street. And you might have a character mentioned or make an appearance in another book, but for the most part, most of the books are just standalone stories that don't have any real
Yeah,
connection to the other ones, except for like it take place in Shady Side or if
in
it takes place on Fear
Fear Street.
Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Gotcha. Man, I
see
need to
you,
check these
Matt,
books
with your
out.
little interview questions. Look at you,
Man,
man.
I'm trying to do what I can. I'm trying to learn. I'm just trying to do what I can do. Trying to do my little part.
Melissa, did you have anything else to add?
um I think it's a great thing that the kids nowadays want to read the books.
Yeah.
I think some of these books are selling for like $100 each or something on eBay.
Yeah,
I
there's no
thought
reprints.
yeah, or they want the original. So
Mhm.
so I actually have thought of selling some of mine, but I don't know. But it's a great thing that the kids are interested and they want to know about the good family and the fear family. Like they want to get into that lore. So, and it's a great way to getting people into reading and horror again.
And that's true, because our last episode, I'm gonna tell you this, chat. Our last episode, we talked about Space Jam and how my son has never watched Looney Tunes or nothing. Fast forward to this week, my son is watching Looney Tunes. And he was saying, because he saw it on the Space Jam movie, he liked some of the characters. So now he's watching the original Looney Tunes and everything else like that. So, like you said, once the kids see this on TV and stuff, then they venture out and want to go more in depth with it and everything else like that. So, yeah. So, I definitely see other kids trying to pick this up. Even me, right now, I was looking at Fear Street and all these books to see which one I want to jump into.
We're about to start a second podcast. We used to talk about these books at work.
About the book.
About our book club podcast.
Actually, we did have like sort of a book club. I reread Harry Potter and Matt was reading them for the first time. So we had like really long conversations about them. What got you into the series, Michael?
All right, so I'm going to admit, I can't believe I'm going to admit this because I don't have this reputation amongst everyone that knows me, but I was a scaredy cat as a kid. Everything scared me. Like even horror comedies that weren't scary would scare the crap out of me. And it wasn't until I was introduced to the Alvin Schwartz books, like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and all of those, that I started to really get a taste for horror. And then that quickly led to Goosebumps. And then when I hit Goosebumps, I was a little older. So it was, like Melissa said, it was a little tamer. So it wasn't enough of the horror element for me. And then I found out, oh, this guy wrote, teen books that are, just scarier. And so then I started Fear Street and I was hooked.
Yeah.
So how much of it have you read out of the 162 books?
It's funny looking back because I thought I hadn't read that. Like I knew I had read a good portion, but looking at the titles, I think I've read most of the main, like the trilogies, the ones that are kind of bundled together. And I would say at least half of the standalone ones. And I've read, like, he wrote a few more Fear Street books within the last few years, and they're not as good. And I've read a few of those, but I would say probably about half of what he wrote with the Fear Street books I've read.
Mm-hmm.
As for favorites, I think Melissa, I think we have a lot of the same favorites.
Yeah.
Like the original, there was the Fear Street Saga, which was a trilogy that she pointed out, kind of told the history between the goods and the fears and what kind of led up to everything that happened.
You know the name of those books?
I actually have them here. So it's The Betrayal, The Secret, and The Burning.
Betrayal, Secret. Let me write this down.
You guys read those if you can.
We got to record it, Matt.
Yeah, so those are
right. Well, I was looking it up. I was right now looking it up on Amazon. I was like, let me see if I can get this.
Overnight them. But yeah, those were growing up. Those were some of my favorites because I love like the historical element and kind of learning how things, because like throughout the books you get little hints of like, oh, Fear Street is haunted because of this, and you get little nuggets of history, but you don't really get a full idea of what happened. And then finally he released these 3 books and it was like, now you know the truth. Now you know why everything is the way it is. And those were really good. The only complaint I had about them, and they fixed it for the movie, is as Melissa pointed out, like it involves somebody getting burned as a witch in the first book. And historically in America, we didn't burn witches, we only hung them. So as a kid, like being that kind of like, well, I know the history of, the witch trials, that always bothered me. But it was still such like, it was just so much fun reading the history and that kind of feud that's gone on for hundreds of years. Cause it was like that drama. It was like a soap opera. Like what happens next, 50 years. So the sagas were some of my, the Fear Street saga was one of my favorites. Melissa mentioned 99 Fear Street, which was another really popular trilogy from the Fear Street books that I really enjoyed growing up because it was a haunted house story. So you can't go wrong with that. And I like trivia wise, I thought it was interesting that in the 3rd Fear Street movie, when you see Martin's like business card, he lives at 99 Fear Street, which I thought was a really interesting little funny Easter egg. Like, oh, my homeboy lives there. Cool. He better move out. That house is haunted. And then the other trilogy that I really enjoyed that I think Melissa also mentioned was the Cheerleader series, which was about, an evil spirit possessing people. And kind of, I mentioned this earlier when Melissa was talking, what I thought was kind of interesting about the Fear Street movies is, I guess it's kind of a spoiler alert for anybody. The Cheerleaders trilogy is kind of very similar to the movies. Like the movies are very loosely in a way based on the Cheerleaders trilogy, because the Cheerleaders movie is about the books starts off with a bunch of cheerleaders on a school bus on the way to a football game, and then there's a wreck. There's a car wreck, and somebody ends up on the grave of someone named Sarah Fear. And then in the first few books, like you're led to believe that Sarah is this evil spirit and that she's possessing all these people and causing them to kill. And then in the 3rd book, you realize everything you thought you knew was wrong. And the main character finds out by going into a flashback and kind of witnesses what started it off. And
That's
and so it's
crazy.
like, oh, you basically took the same plot but just got rid of cheerleaders and did something like loosely based, but it's almost the same story. And it didn't click for me because like I reread the cheerleaders books before the movies came out, and then I watched the movies and I didn't think anything about it, and then somebody made a point about something with the cheerleaders and I was like, wait a minute, deja vu, I just read this is the same story. It's just everything that happens in between is completely different. The details are different, but like the general plot is kind of the same.
Okay.
Except that Sarah in that one is like a completely different character.
Yeah.
Like they treat her, she's not accused of being a witch, but you know, she's still kind of tied into the town history.
So I guess how did we go with I guess we can't go at all about how the books compare because it's loosely based. But if I guess since you guys read so much, what would be a book or trilogy that you would like for them to see them make a movie of from part of the whole Fear Street collection?
I would say I would like 99 Fear Street because I love haunted house movies. And 99 Fear Street I think was a good one for me growing up. And I would like them to touch on the saga. I know like the history they gave for Sarah and the Fear family and the Goods was different in the movie, but I really enjoyed the kind of drama that happens in the original Fear Street saga, where you're kind of learning how everything started and how this feud has lasted for centuries. I mean, it's very like I feel like it would do better as a TV show because you can kind of do a season on each time period and kind of follow the families
so
along.
Like something on Netflix?
Yeah, because it doesn't have like one of those plot lines where you follow a character throughout the story. It's like you meet the first version of the family and then you jump, like something bad happens and you see how the feud happens between the two families, and then it'll jump like a generation and then you see how the curse kind of affects that generation, and then you keep kind of jumping throughout the time periods. So it would do better as a TV show than a straightforward movie, I think. But I definitely think it has a lot of potential for like a really good story.
Melissa, what you think?
Same with what Michael said. Like I actually want Simon Fear's story on screen. I think he had the most notorious story in the books. I still feel like a bit shortchanged that they didn't change the name of the street in the movies, because I was hoping that if they change the name of the street in the movies, they could have. I think it would have some continuity with Simon's story at least, because Simon Fear and his wife Angelica, they were both evil. Like they practice the dark arts, and even if they tried to escape the curse, but they were still evil. And I guess one of the interesting stories about them, since they had 5 kids, like their 2 elder daughters, they killed each other. And then in further spin-offs, like Simon and Angelica tried to get their daughters back from the dead. Like they got the bones, and then they tried to get two girls from Shady's side. They tried so that those 2 girls could give up their souls, so that Simon's daughters could live again. I actually like that story. So I thought it was it was so evil, so creepy, but I don't know. I found it so compelling even as a kid. So I'd actually like to see it on the big screen if they could.
Okay.
So let's transition to trivia. What do you think that the Rotten Tomato score is for these movies? So I want 3 numbers here. So your first one will obviously be for the first one, and the second one for the second one. I'll give you a range.
All right.
Instead of going 1 to 100, let's say between we'll cut it in half, between 50 and 100. Where do you think these fail?
I'm going to say 94 is probably going to be like a 60 or a 70. I can see 78 maybe being an 80, and 66. I want to say mid 80s too, because I know I personally felt it was the best one, but I feel like some people didn't like the historical part of it and probably gave it a suckier rating. But yeah, I'm going to say 80s as well for that one.
Melissa?
My favorite was 1978, so I'm gonna give it like maybe 90.
Okay.
And then I also thought 94 was the weakest. So I'm gonna give it 70.
Okay.
And then 1666 was good, but with its share of loopholes. And I did like the historical part. So I'm gonna go with 85.
All right. And Matt, what do you think the Rotten Tomatoes?
70, 85, 90.
Okay. So part 1 got an 84%. Part 2 got an 89%. And part 3 got a 93%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think everyone agrees that's the best one. All right. So we got a trivia question. Then we are going to do some random trivia from each movie. I just got one bit from each movie, and then we're out of here. True or false? The mall featured in all 3 parts of this trilogy is the same mall from Stranger Things season 3. True or false?
I'm gonna say true.
True.
Despite viewers' speculation, the mall used in Fear Street is not the same one used in Stranger Things.
Interesting.
Trivia. The art department tried to convince the director that a human head would not go through a bread slicer, but she was adamant that it would. To prove her wrong, they brought a bread slicer and shoved a watermelon through it to show her it wasn't possible. To their surprise, it worked perfectly, and everyone in the production office cheered. So that's trivia for 1994. Trivia for 1978. When Ziggy is roped to a tree by the bullies, one girl calls her a witch like Sarah Fear. The witch believed to have cursed Shady Side. The girl then says Sarah Fear is still alive and wouldn't be if they burned her instead of hung her. And just like you guys said, in the original Fear Street book series, it was suggested the town was haunted partly because 2 innocent women were killed by witchcraft hundreds of years ago. Unlike Sarah Fear, they were burnt. And the last bit of trivia for 1666, but it's actually 1994 part 2. After killing Nick, Dina removes her coat to show Sam her body armor made of books. The books are various actual Fear Street titles, including The First Evil and Fear Street Cheerleaders #1.
I laughed out loud when that.
Also, I wrote another piece of trivia and I know I didn't delete it. Okay, so in part 1 at the very beginning in the bookstore, there are all those books by an author named Robert Lewis. That's what RL stands for in RL sign.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting too. The first line of the movie is the tagline for the book that they show too, which I think is is it
another Easter egg?
Yeah, is it the wrong number? I can't remember. Yeah, but I remember that's the tagline for the book. Yeah.
The opening line.
That's pretty clever.
And then ironically, that's what happened to Heather. It started
Yeah.
Then she was murdered.
Don't answer the phone.
Yeah.
Never answer the phone. So I want to thank Melissa and Michael so much for coming on. You guys gave us so much good information. We had such a long conversation, but thank you guys so much. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you, because you did more talking. That means I didn't have to. So I just chime in with a joke here and there. Yeah, we good. It's a good episode then.
we opened the third eye and we spoke for you.
That's right. All right. So a little different than normal, guys. Next week we're going to be doing Suicide Squad with a guest that we used to work with. So yeah, a little teaser for next week. Michael, why don't you plug your podcast real quick?
Sure. So my podcast is called The Green Room Chats. You can find it at anchor.fm/The Green Room Chat. And it's all about theater. Give it a listen, but obviously don't listen to the trailer because it's too long.
Yeah, I'm going to put a link for that in the show notes. And Melissa, did you have anything you want to promote? And it's okay if you don't.
Not at this moment. Thanks, though.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. Please rate, like, and review our podcast on your platform of choice. If you have any feedback, please email us at weusedtotalkpod@gmail.com. Like our Facebook page, We Used to Talk About This at Work, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at We Used to Talk Pod.
In the way the news goes.